Now let's talk about one of the things that some people can disagree with me, especially those who are successful. I think success depends on luck, sometimes at least partly. And I mean, if you come to think about it, you find that this is actually the truth, right? I mean, first of all, think about the circumstances, you know, of being born as a human being. You could be born from a very poor background or very rich background, right? And somehow you don't have a say in where to be born, right? You don't have a say in who is going to be your parents, right? But somehow we are all born, randomly, right? And being born in a very rich background gives you a good head start in life. But now, if you're born in a poor background, somehow you find that you're way behind those who are born um, by rich parents, in terms of opportunities, in terms of, the way you grow, and the education you're going to have, the type of lifestyle, the exposure in terms of education, financial literacy, things like that, right? And so you find that those two people are very different and they do not determine where to be born, right? That on its own is luck, yeah. And then another thing is the opportunities and timing, right? I mean, think about being at the right time, at the right spot, at the right time, so that you can grab that opportunity and actually become successful with it. You see, someone like Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg was invented Facebook, right? And that particular time, there were not so much social media platforms, which actually increased his chances of being successful, right? I mean, he managed to invent this thing or to come up with this thing at the right time, right? Right now, there are a lot of social media platforms. If you try to come up with something like that, you find that there is a lower chances of your invention or your app becoming successful, right? So you find that those who went into the market in the beginning are the ones who dominate the market, right? Up to now. Another opportunity is something like cryptocurrencies. I think in 2009, somewhere there, yeah, Bitcoin was invented, after the 2008 financial crisis in America, right? And this guy called Satoshi Nakamoto managed to come up with cryptocurrencies, right? And I mean, his whole intention was just for transactions to enable people to, transact, right? And of course, most people in the beginning did not see it as an investment, right? But you find that there is that one lucky person who just bought a lot of bitcoins and decided to hold it up to date, right? And it's worth billions and billions of dollars right now. If you had bought a lot of it at that particular time, right? I mean, right now one bitcoin is above $100,000, which is crazy considering it started with less than a dollar, right? So if someone had a million bitcoins in the beginning and held it till date, you find that that person is a multi-billionaire, right? But again, who knew that Bitcoin was going to be that successful invention that a lot of people were gonna adopt it, right? Nobody. I mean, it's all about luck if you come to think about it, right? And also, if you think of investments like shares, bonds, okay, let's talk about shares, equities, you buying shares of one company, but then you're not sure about the future of that company. You will be lucky if that company actually succeeds and becomes a multi-trillion valuation company or multi-billion in valuation, right? And that means that you could cash out big time, right? But now you'll have to have some sort of luck. You see, I think in 2022 I bought Safaricom shares. I had seen that the share price came from 50 to around 20, 25 there, right? And I bought it, right? But then after some time, I found myself selling it, right? But then after I sold it, it went up, right? So you find that someone who had bought, because it later on went to about 16 shillings. So someone who had bought it at 16, and right now I think it's something about around 30 or even 35, right? So someone who had bought it at 16 is making the profit, right? And initially there is someone who had bought it at 50, right? And right now is still on loss, right? That's of course if they manage to sell it, right? At a loss. So it's all about uh, luck, some sort of luck. And think about the richest man in the world. I think it's Elon Musk right now, right? So Elon Musk started Tesla and SpaceX, but he was not 100% sure that this thing was going to work, and he was just willing to take the risk, right? So there is nothing like guarantee. I think, in fact, I think a lot of it is luck. Yeah, and I think I've thought about this working for a job, right? If you're working for a job, you find that you get that salary, right? And it's very difficult to actually be employed and become a billionaire through employment, right? It is very difficult. You've got to start something like some business of some sort that, or maybe build a company that someday is gonna be worth billions and sell that company, right? Or you could start a business that can scale, or. But actually, being an employee alone cannot get you to a billion, right? And an employee also getting that job in some places could be some sense of luck, because I think in some places like Kenya, you find that there is a lot of unemployment. You know, a lot of people could have studied. A lot of people have those qualifications. They have those education qualifications, but somehow they're unemployed because what the economy is, there are no jobs in the economy, right? And that can be quite challenging. And in some cases like that, you find that you have to be even lucky to get that job in the beginning, right? But then now, if you're not lucky in the beginning, then you won't get the money to probably invest, build that business to probably propel you to a billion, a shilling mark or dollars. And that just tells you how luck plays a critical role. Talk about health and longevity. You know, I think they talk of um, time being an asset when it comes to investment, especially if you're dealing with compound interest, right? And you find that someone like Warren Buffett, I think he's in his 80s or even 90s, right? And he's a billionaire, right? He's a billionaire and he's done so through compounding, right? And you find that what he had best is time, longevity. And I think for you to be health, so that you can wait to become rich, or you can wait for your investment to actually return some value, you have to be health, and that takes some luck. It's upon God to decide whether to give you good health or not. You know, it's going to actually make you stay longer, live longer. For you to even invest longer and become, take more risks and actually become more wealthy, right? Another one is connections and encounters. Find that some people can actually meet this one connection, which can come and change their lives, right? And it could happen by luck. Maybe you're at an event and you meet this person, you network, and they bring opportunities to you, or you actually become business partners. But what would happen if you, as that person, maybe would have not attended that particular event? You find that you would not have probably met that person, and you'd probably miss that opportunity of actually making those deals with that particular person, right? So somehow you find that luck actually plays a role there, right? And then now, Another thing is macro events, external events. Talk of things like market crashes, pandemics, wars, technological shifts, you know, it actually plays a role. I remember, I think Nokia at some point was one of these giant when it comes to mobile phones, right? But somehow the smartphone came along and they were not able to adapt to the new technologies. And that is how companies like Apple actually took over and overtook them, right? And that's how they actually, sales plummeted and the company actually was no longer dominant when it comes to mobile phones, right? And you find that such things involves luck, right? I mean, if you think about it, this the investors who actually bought a Nokia shares then, you find that probably they went on a loss or something, right? Another company like Yahoo, for example, I think they were overtaken by Google when it comes to search engine, right? And in my knowledge, I think Yahoo was the leading search engine before Google, right? Initially, but somehow due to mismanagement, I don't think in the early 90s or even in the early 80s, someone could believe that Yahoo could be overtaken by another company, right? But things happen. I mean, it's all about luck, and even though there are some and even though there are some things like discipline, skill, and persistence that amplify that, you find that luck is crucial in actually becoming successful or becoming rich, and literally everything is luck. Sometimes I hear these people talking about the way they started this business, and because they were very smart they were able to be successful. Then I'm like, you know what, that's bullshit, because you can't convince me that without luck you'd have made it. You're saying that I could start from zero and actually build it up. If I was left in the Sahara Desert, you know I hear this American some of the American investors saying, if I was left in Sahara Desert, I would have made my billions back. Come on. No, you wouldn't. Sahara Desert is in Africa, and with Africa, opportunities comes very little. You made those billions because probably you are in the USA, where there are a lot of opportunities and a lot of funding. You know, come to a country like Kenya, getting funds is not a walk in the park. You don't just get that easily. And I think it's just important that these people actually recognize the importance of actually being lucky. What do you think? Do you think luck leads to success? Do you think luck has a part to play when it comes to success? Leave your thoughts in the comment sections, and of course, leave a like to the video. And of course, see you in the next one. Bye. Subscribe to the channel as well.